If you're out there trying to build anything, a business, a career, a new habit, anything really,
Mm-hmm.
you've probably encountered that persistent critic.
Oh, yeah.
They're the ones with, it seems, just endless energy for finding fault, for pointing out risks, and, reminding you of every little failure.
Yeah.
But here's the question we've been looking at. Have you ever stopped and noticed that the loudest critics, they rarely seem to be the ones who are actually doing anything?
That is so much more than just a feeling. It's a core psychological dynamic, and that's what we're going to really unpack today.
Okay.
We've pulled together some incredibly sharp insights on the psychology of criticism and, well, confidence.
Hmm.
And our mission for this deep dive is pretty simple.
Let's hear it.
First, we want to synthesize the true motives, the often painful ones behind that persistent criticism. And then, and this is key, define a really robust, action-oriented framework for how to respond.
So we're moving past just, stay motivated.
Exactly. This is about deep psychological understanding so that when the noise starts, you know exactly what game is being played. And, more importantly, how you can stay focused on your own field.
I think that's crucial because so often when we get hit with heavy criticism, especially if it's mean-spirited or just keeps coming, we instantly internalize it. We assume the attack has to be about us, our flaws, our projects, weaknesses.
Of course. That's the natural reaction.
But the material we're looking at, it offers this really powerful counter-narrative that just changes everything.
And that is.
That the criticism is rarely about the target. It's almost always a reflection of the critic's own internal unmet needs.
Exactly. And once you accept that premise, that the attack is just a projection or a reflection, the whole dynamic shifts.
Yeah.
It stops being a battle you have to win, and it becomes, well, just an unfortunate display you need to observe and then ignore.
Okay, so let's unpack this then. We're talking about that persistent, unhelpful negativity. What is driving someone to spend so much time and energy just trying to tear other people down?
The primary mechanism at play here is what the sources identify as the internal void.
The internal void.
Yeah, these are individuals who feel profoundly disconnected. Maybe they're confused about their identity, or they're just deeply frustrated with where they are in life versus where they think they should be.
So they don't have a solid sense of self.
Not one that comes from within, no. So instead of looking inward, which is, painful work,
Right.
they look outward. They look for a cause, for a target.
So because they feel empty inside, they actually need an external event, like my success or my failure, just to feel something.
Precisely. They're trying to manage their own cognitive dissonance. See, if they're inactive and miserable, they have to believe that taking action is, well, fundamentally futile or dangerous or just doomed.
And if I succeed, that shatters their whole worldview.
It shatters it. So they have to project their sense of failure onto your attempt. They try to lower your value, hoping it will somehow validate their own inertia.
That makes a lot of sense, but it also sounds, that's a very strong generalization.
Yeah.
How do we distinguish between this kind of psychological projection and, genuine constructive feedback?
That's a great question, and the sources help us draw that line very clearly.
Okay.
The distinction comes down to the critic's activity and their intent. Constructive feedback is specific. It's solution-oriented. And it comes from a place of respect, usually from someone who's done the work themselves or at least understands the arena.
Right. They've been there.
They've been there. But destructive criticism, the kind we're talking about, it's generic. It's often focused on you as a person, not the work. And it almost always comes from a place of chronic inaction.
And that brings us to what the material calls the logic of self-worth. People who genuinely know their worth, as it's put, they don't waste their time tearing other people down.
Well, it's an efficiency issue, really. I mean, if your confidence is rooted in real action and, tangible results, if you already stand on something real, you just don't have the emotional bandwidth or the time to dedicate to gossip and attacks. Builders focus on leading and growing and adding value. When they see someone else succeeding, their first thought is, what can I learn from that?
Not, how do I stop that?
Exactly. Not, how do I stop that?
So this pattern of constant criticism, it's really a signal of a pattern of inaction. It's a defense mechanism.
It is. The sources are really powerful on this point. They say that individuals with no real direction, no vision, or no purpose inevitably become the most dedicated critics of anyone who does have those things.
Wow.
They criticize because they don't know how to create. They gossip because they don't know how to grow. Yeah. And they laugh because they don't know how to lead. They're just trying to justify taking the easier road.
And that road is explicitly defined as easier. It's easier to sit on the sidelines and throw stones than to step into the arena and build something that matters.
And it requires zero vulnerability, right?
Right.
When you're on the sidelines, you risk nothing. No failure, no exposure, none of the energy that sustained effort requires.
Yeah.
But the moment you step into that arena, you're signing up for both, the effort and the potential critique.
And the critic finds safety in their judgment.
Yes, even if that safety comes at the cost of their own growth or fulfillment.
Okay, let's pivot now to something that's, I think, a lot tougher. What happens when the critic isn't some troll on the internet, but someone in your inner circle, a family member, a friend, a coworker? This is that paradox of proximity.
And it's often the most painful criticism to navigate.
Absolutely.
That close-quarters criticism is so damaging because it uses trust and intimacy as leverage.
Yeah.
The psychological driver here isn't just some generalized frustration. It's a very specific, localized fear.
And that fear is?
It's the critic's profound discomfort with your change and your growth.
So my ambition suddenly becomes a threat, not just to their mindset, but to the entire structure of our relationship.
Exactly. Every relationship has a kind of equilibrium. Your progress, it shatters that. Your success forces them to confront a reality that they have been actively trying to avoid.
It reminds them of the risks they didn't take.
The risks they didn't take, the dreams they abandoned, the effort they're avoiding right now. Your confidence becomes a direct confrontation to the insecurity they're trying so hard to hide.
That's fascinating, but hang on a second. Isn't that a bit harsh? I mean, surely a loved one might just express some concern out of genuine care. They're just worried you'll fail and get hurt. So how do we filter that? How do we distinguish genuine concern from this fear-driven belittling?
That is the most important filter to have. And the sources give us a pretty clear behavioral checklist for telling the difference.
Okay, good.
See, genuine concern offers solutions. It asks clarifying questions. And, crucially, it respects your ultimate choice.
Right.
Insecurity, on the other hand, it shows up through specific tactics. And these tactics are all aimed at slowing or just stopping your momentum.
And what are those tactics? What does that look like in a conversation?
Well, first, they downplay your wins almost instantly. They'll use phrases like, oh, that was just luck, or, well, anyone could have done that.
I've heard that one.
Then they'll highlight your mistakes. They'll blow them way out of proportion to justify their initial pessimism.
Yeah.
And this one is key. They call your ambitions unrealistic or too big.
Why that one specifically?
Because they need to pull you back into a comfortable, smaller box. A box where their own lack of movement feels acceptable. They're trying to manage their discomfort by managing your reality.
So the conclusion is the same then, even for people who are close to us?
It is.
They do this not because they know our limits, but because they don't know their own potential.
That's the powerful takeaway here. People who are whole on the inside, as the source puts it, don't need to break others on the outside. This destructive behaviors, it's just insecurity wearing a mask. And seeing it that way, well, that gives you the emotional distance you need to survive it.
Which brings us to the moment of action. If this criticism is just insecurity wearing a mask, then how do we, the builders, define an armor that can actually deflect it? We have to shift from analyzing the critic to defining a confident response. So what should you actually do when you're under this kind of consistent attack?
The entire strategy is built on one thing: strategic non-engagement.
Okay.
And redirecting all of that energy. The source material is adamant about what to avoid. Do not argue. Do not try to prove your worth. Do not beg for their acceptance.
Why not? I mean, isn't that our first instinct, to defend ourselves?
It is, but engaging on the critic's terms means you have just paused your mission to go manage someone else's internal problem. And that is the complete waste of your most valuable resource, your focus.
Okay, but if we're not arguing, what's the counteraction? Because silence can sometimes feel like defeat, can it? Especially in like a public or professional setting.
The response has to be rooted entirely in action and purpose. This is your active defense. You're not actually being silent. You're just refusing to speak the critic's language.
Language of negativity.
Exactly. The focus has to be inward. You let your results speak. You let your discipline become your defense. And you let your mission drown out the noise completely.
Let's break that down a bit. Discipline as defense. What does that mean in practical terms? How do we use routine and focus to literally build a shield against judgment?
Discipline is the ultimate defense because it creates internal evidence that external noise just can't get through.
Internal evidence, I like that.
Practically, it means you prioritize the metrics that you control over the opinions that you don't. You need a process, a filter for feedback. If the criticism doesn't change your routine or improve your product or get you closer to your quantifiable goal,
It's just noise.
it's just noise, and it must be eliminated.
So if a critic says my idea is stupid, but my internal data shows that customer engagement is going up, I trust the data.
You trust the data, exactly. When you execute your routine consistently, you start to satisfy your brain's internal reward system with competence, rather than looking for that fragile, fleeting reward of external applause.
That's a huge shift. From seeking validation to seeking competence.
Makes the critic irrelevant.
And that unwavering focus, that's what earns the only validation that really matters in the end.
Yeah.
Respect.
Absolutely. You don't need to be liked by everyone, but you do need to be respected by the right ones. The other builders, the high performers, the people who actually get what it costs to be committed.
And that respect is earned by staying the course when it's tough and refusing to shrink when the world wants you small.
Exactly. Respect comes from people witnessing your dedication, not from them agreeing with your popularity.
This is a perfect contrast of activity then. While the critic is busy focusing on us, we're busy focusing on our mission.
That is the entire strategy summarized right there. While they're talking, you build. While they're posting about your mistakes, you execute the next step. While they're judging, you grow.
It's the only response that actually moves your life forward.
And it drains the critic of all their power. They thrive on engagement. When you refuse to stop building, their judgment has no lasting impact on your trajectory.
Which brings us to the ultimate payoff. That moment when the results are so clear, so undeniable, that the original criticism is just rendered irrelevant. This is what the source calls the stage of non-negotiable value. So what happens when the builder finally has that breakthrough?
The sources describe this really compelling and frankly satisfying final outcome. When the results are undeniable, when the vision becomes reality, and that thing they said you'd never do becomes what you did.
Yeah.
The critics have only two choices. They either just quietly fade into irrelevance, or they will suddenly show up and pretend they always believed in you.
Either way, they're neutralized. The energy they once had to attack you is gone, replaced by the crushing weight of your undeniable success.
And this reveals the final, empowering truth that all that internal evidence grants you. By the time you get to that point, their criticism won't matter anymore.
Yeah.
Because you will know deep down that their opinions were never the problem.
Their emptiness was.
Their emptiness was. You no longer need external validation because the internal ledger, the hard work, the discipline, the results, it's just overwhelming.
That is the definition of true, unshakable confidence built on competence.
It is.
It means recognizing that the people who tried to limit your potential, they were never qualified to define your value in the first place.
Exactly. Your value was never up for negotiation. The mandate from this whole deep dive is just to stand tall, not shrink to fit, and to never, ever apologize for dreaming bigger. Your growth is your business, and your quiet, persistent results are the only answer that's ever required.
That brings an incredible amount of clarity. True strength isn't expressed by breaking other people down. It's expressed through quiet, persistent, productive building. The highest form of confidence is quiet execution.
And as you move forward from here and you feel that inevitable pull of someone trying to minimize your success, just reflect on this for a moment. When they attack you, they are not defining your reality. They're just trying to manage their own insecurity.
A final thought for everyone to take with them.
Yeah. Consider where in your own life you might be unconsciously shrinking, just to fit someone else's comfort level. And think about how focusing solely on the metrics of your mission could completely neutralize that need for any external validation. Don't engage the critic. Just keep building your world bigger than their box.